And welcome to this episode of Steelfur Speaks with me, of course, Steelfur, London-based Flesh and Blood player. Happy to be coming to speak to you again. I know I haven't done as many of these videos recently as I would like, but unfortunately life has been a bit busy. Various people in my family have been sick and things like that have been going on. So there hasn't been as much time for recording Flesh and Blood content as we would like. Obviously, my last few videos were about the calling in Krakow. Obviously, there's as far as I'm aware, that is still going ahead. Everyone is still going to be going there. There are obviously some complications with the global sort of way the world is going right now that may make it a bit more difficult, but we'll kind of have to see how that goes as to whether or not things might get cancelled at the last minute. But as far as I'm aware, for the moment, things are still going ahead, which is all good. I mean, I'm still quite excited for that event, and I'm going to be keen to go there. What's been going on in the world of Flesh and Blood? Obviously, we have lots of different little announcements going on. James White did an interview with the French podcast L'Idée Fidia, where he was talking about the new starter decks that were coming out, which are going to be upgraded versions of the Ira decks, which are going to essentially have capabilities for people to play. Sorry, just a little bit of a moth. Had to kill that. So people are going to be playing, be able to buy those decks and then upgrade them to play. I'm expecting probably a mix of WTR and ARC heroes for that, just to get those heroes back into circulation. But we're going to have to see how that kind of works out. Also, we have the announcement of foreign language translations of the game, which is, of course, big for us over here in Europe because, obviously, French players, there's plenty of the French market that will not be able to play in English that can now play in French. And same for the other languages, it's going to be localized. We're not entirely sure what the first product is going to be for those languages, whether it's going to be WTR and ARC or some sort of WTR and ARC confusion. There won't be cold foils in the product, we've been told, but there will be some form of special spicy alternate art or special version cards that make it exciting to buy and open. So even if there aren't cold foils, it should still be quite an exciting thing to purchase. And I guess they're kind of hoping that some of the English language speakers and the Americans and things like that will want those boxes or those special spice, right? Just even though there's not specific cards for them. After that, we have obviously the new draft set coming in June, and then a new supplemental set coming in the autumn/winter. It's a bit of a, it's a bit of a year if we're only getting one draft set and then another supplemental set. I know that waiting from now until June to get new cards is quite a long wait. But I do think the positive of that is that we have this Blitz season immediately after this current season we're doing. So, it will be quite fresh metas both times. So obviously the ProQuest meta now is quite fresh. And then when we go into the Blitz meta using all the new Everfest cards, that will be quite fresh as well. So that's something to be quite excited about too. So it's not just going to be the same thing all the time. I think that's important to acknowledge. So you can get excited about the fact that meta is going to change, and then we're going to have a new draft set, which will be a limited format, and a new Blitz format, and a new CC format, which will take us through the rest of the year. So there is a lot to look forward to. Obviously, the pro quests have been going on. I've done 3 out of the 5 that I'm going to be attending now. 1 last weekend. I got back from 1 just now this evening, and I did 1 yesterday as well. I haven't particularly, I would say I haven't really done very well in those for the same reason I haven't had time to make a lot of videos. I also haven't had much time to practice FAB. I've been playing in my weekly armory, which is 3 games a week. I haven't really been doing a lot of testing. I have been keeping my eye on the meta, but I haven't really been, cutting edge as I like to be. But that's just the way that life is sometimes. I will be going to the Pro Tour, so obviously I need to do a lot of practice before we get to that stage so that I can take the strongest deck in and hopefully do well at that event. Not say win the event, but, do well. I would like to at least make a cut or two and see how we get on. But I know that some of the best players in the world are going to be there. It's going to be a hard competition. So the meta has developed pretty much as you guys would have expected. Starvo sort of came out of left field the first week with his, hey, I just run all these cards and get loads of go again. Kind of blew a few people out of the water. But obviously what we've seen now for the second week is a lot of people have remembered all the weaknesses in that deck and the inherent weaknesses in that deck. That's not to say it still can't high roll you, and that's something we'll talk about in a minute. But there are still lots of inherent weaknesses in that deck, and it's given Prism, of course, the chance to shine. Viserai is still good. Intuit and Viserai is still a good deck. So we're kind of in the situation where we've got Prism, Viserai, and Stavro, Bravo, kicking around as the top meta decks. And there's also Chain sort of coming up, biting at the heels of the other decks, using a lot of those strong Runeblade cards as well. And actually, I will say, and I've said this before, we do actually have quite a diverse meta. You've also seen things like Bolton, Axis Dorinthia, making top cuts. There's been one Azalea, but let's not talk about that. I mean, she's not very good. But one person did manage to get in with Azalea. Akano has made the top 4 at a ProQuest. So, much like we saw with previous FAB metas, there is still a lot of variety, even though the best deck, end quotes, is still, Prism or Stavro or whatever like that. People can still high roll, they can still get the variants, they can still be very good with a specific hero. And get it, not every hero, because remember that in our meta we have our tier 1s, we have our tier 2s, which are contenders for tier 1s, and then of course we have the tier 3s, which aren't really contenders for tier 1s. Can't really beat tier 1s, and it's possible for a tier 2 deck to make the top cut, maybe even to win a tournament, but it's about consistency at that point, where the tier 1 decks get that consistent performance, and the tier 2 decks can't really deliver the same consistent performance. But that does not mean, sorry, why do I still have my email address here? That does not mean that you are going to get the same win rates over the entire season that you will with a tier 1 or tier 0 deck. Now, it is worth noting that obviously Living Legend points are being given out for the Pro Quests and the Pro Tours. Some heroes are getting a good chunk, including Prism, who has won several major events now, are getting a good chunk of Living Legend points at this point. So it's quite good to see that happening, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when those rotate. We could very easily see someone like Prism getting enough points to rotate by maybe mid next year in order to sort of, change what's going on. Which would be quite exciting. I mean, we've no idea what's going to happen with the rotation. We know there's going to be a replacement hero of some description that will come out for that class match, so that you can still play all your cards. But we don't know exactly what that's going to look like entirely. So on to, because I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about Bravo Star of the Show a bit more, because I have found, and I'm speaking to a lot of people, the deck is powerful. Like, there's no denying that. You reveal cards, you get Go Again, you hit someone with a Crippling Crush, you Awakening Crippling Crush, and then you come in for 3 attacks and deal tons of damage. But from what I'm hearing from a lot of people who've played it, and certainly who stopped playing it after last week, is that it's just not that fun. Like, you get the cards, you can't block, so if you block with any cards, you can't use your hero ability, which means that there's no real nuance. It's, do I have my hero ability? Yes, therefore I don't block, and then just deal shitloads of damage. Do I have Awakening? Okay, take some damage, do a free attack. Like, there's not a lot of nuance there. It's yes or no questions at the start of every turn. And with Crown of Seeds, you're getting a lot of the element cards you need anyway, so there's not a lot of, like, nuance or skill involved in that deck. And what that kind of means is that when you're winning, you don't really feel like you earned the win, because it's like, well, I won, but I won because I high rolled this and I got this and I got that. And if I lose, it's because I didn't get that and I didn't get this. And a lot of people I've been talking to just say they felt like they actually felt pretty bored playing the deck, because it was a lot of binary questions. It was a lot of yes or no. There wasn't a lot of preparing for the late game or preparing for the next cycle of the deck or getting stuff ready for that. I know there are some variants that do that, but in the majority, a lot of people playing Bravo aren't doing that. They're just drawing cards. They're drawing cards. If they draw right, they get it. They smash. And for that reason, it's not actually particularly that fun to play. And I think this is a problem with the deck, because the way the card is designed, it will always be this all or nothing card. You can't get all of those elements in your hands without keeping minimum 3 cards in your hand, which means you blocked with 1 card. And it doesn't even matter. You can't reveal a card in Arsenal, so you can't even Arsenal what are the element cards you need. You just need a 3-card hand. And that is really, really risky, dangerous, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really reward people for setting up properly or doing all these kind of things. It rewards you for drawing the right 3 cards at the right time. And I did say this when Bravo was originally released. It's like, you have this design philosophy, and the design philosophy is this horizontal, lots of mini factions that are walled off from each other, which delineates the balance and power level of the game. And then you have someone who, like Bravo, who you print, and it cuts across all of those barriers for an entire set and gets more cards than any other mini faction has, and therefore gets this really strong deck with lots of flexibility and deck building tools, but which would be fine. if he just had abilities that work with different elements in certain ways. Like if he had an ability that gave go again if you revealed a lightning and an earth card, or +2 if you revealed an earth card and a lightning card. Like if he had an ability that was somehow rewarded you for building like different elemental combination decks, like ice lightning, earth lightning, like earth ice, like whatever, if he rewarded you differently for building different decks, it would be interesting. But as it is, his ability only rewards you for building this weird mishmash of decks and then drawing and holding those cards in the right way, which is very restrictive design. He can only operate in a certain manner, which is why he's a bad hero, to be honest. I'll go out and say that. I find that I'm often interested in a lot of the hero designs that LSS come out with. Even if they're not powerful right now, like someone like Azalea, I can still see them and find them interesting because they create a lot of different scope for gameplay. But I'll go right out there and say I think Bravo Star of the Show is badly designed. The gameplay pattern with him is too linear. It will always be too linear. It rewards you too much for doing something that has no cost. You don't have to pay any resources. You just have to reveal 3 cards. So the cost is life, but it's not actually a cost because the amount you can hit them back for in exchange for what you're giving up, the life, is much more than an opponent can do. And also, if you get below on life, you can just awakening and instantly be back in the game. So the cost that it's charging you for this free ability isn't high enough, and is too complicated to be fun, and the reward it gives you is too high for the cost of the ability, right? Most other hero abilities have a baked-in cost. It's either a deck-building cost, in a way. The Star of the Show has a deck-building cost. You have to include a lot of bad lightning and earth and ice cards just to get his ability to work. But he doesn't have, but other heroes have the deck-building cost and another cost, right? The Katsu has the deck building cost of you need 0-cost cards and combo cards, but the cost is also I have to discard a card. Dorinthia is you have to play ways of making your weapon hit, but you also have to pay for the weapon to attack. And all these other little things that come in with a cost plus a deck building idea restriction. And Bravo just has this massive deck building restriction, but if you meet it, you can just kind of get the ability for free. So I'll go out and just fully say, I think Bravo Star of the Show is a badly designed hero. Hit and a miss. People, you can't land every single one. That's perfectly fine. Again, I refer to my previous video. I feel like he was under-tested because he was probably a cool idea they wanted to include, but maybe didn't test well enough, or tested him a bit, but then, I get the impression with Bravo that what they actually tested was this, Earthlore, Bounty, card draw, whatever, using different auras and stuff like that build, where they were trying to use as many of the new cards as possible, from Everfest, where really the actual answer to something like Starvo was just to put in all of the elemental cards and just make it work. And that's not you test all the new cards, but actually the card you're making might be broken in the context of the old card. And I feel like you need playtesters who are going to try and build these decks and break the game, and maybe they have a few of them. But as I keep saying, I think LSS probably do need more. So what's happened then in the context of Starvo being so good is that Prism has finally found her sort of stride. Prism was always good, but Prism with 27 auras is actually brilliant. And I'm really happy about it because I wanted to play Aura Prism when Prism first came out. I said I really like these instants. I'd just come from playing Kano. I really wanted Aura Prism to work. And then I was still sort of in a situation where Aura Prism didn't work, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just playing these 4-cost cards, and then you're killing them, and I'm not really getting anywhere. But now Aura Prism is actually a very, very bona fide thing, and I'm very, very excited for that. And I played that today. I went 3-2, but I lost to the guy who came 5th and the guy who came 6th or something. So I had 2 hard games early on, and then lost those to the people who ultimately climbed into the top cut. And I haven't actually had that many reps with Prism either. I think I'm on about 6 or 7. So I went 3-2, 5 rounds, and it's fine. It is what it is. And yesterday I went 4-2 with Viserai, but again, I lost fairly early to mirror matches I hadn't played and some ruling interactions I wasn't as familiar with because I just haven't been practicing as much as I should be. So there's not much really to do about that. Just keep practicing and refining decks and sort of keep on going. For the next ProQuest. I also played Katsu in one event. I played this really hyper aggro Katsu deck that I'll should have put a deck list out on maybe next week. It's not running a lot of cards you think it would run, just cutting them in favor of like go again cards. And it was quite fun. It was good against Starvo. It was good against Prism. But it didn't really, it lost a lot of sort of the control switch parts of Katsu that let you sort of, block more if you need to, which I think would have benefited me in a few matchups. So there's not much really to do about that, but it was a fun list, and I'll happily share that with you guys next week. For what it's worth, that plant is falling out of its pot. By the way, if anyone is worried about this plant, it does need repotting, but as soon as I replot it, it will be perfectly fine. It just needs taking care of. So what else is going on in the world of Fab? That's kind of it, really. I mean, we've got our little meta. We've got our pro quests. Bravo got 150 living legend points last week. Prism got 60. I imagine Prism will get a lot more living legend points this week than she did last week. So we're gonna have to sort of see how that goes. Because remember, she's got 278. Prism's got 460. Briar's got 400. Katsu's got 300. Prism still has a long way to go. Bravo, star of the show, has gone up to 180 from 0, which is hilarious. So he's just come on the scene and instantly gained 200 living legend points, which is kind of, exactly what I say. It's a strong deck, but it's a boring deck. What else is going on? I kind of want to keep this update just a little short, just because I've obviously been out playing Flesh and Blood all day today, and I kind of just need to chill a bit more. But I wanted to get a video out there to talk to all of you guys. So obviously we have more pro quests coming up. I'm going to do a bit of an overview of the decks I've been playing next week or so, and we're also going to run into a few deck techs and things like that once I've got a few more reps under my belt and I can talk about them a bit more. But that's kind of good. So thanks all for listening. I'll talk to you all soon and have a great week.